everybody. We are live with the 2019 Realtree Rut Report. This is the third year that we have had this feature, this resource available to you guys. We're super excited about bringing it back again for 2019. The format isn't going to change much. It's still the same exact report that you guys loved and tuned into last year. The only difference is we're beefing it up. We're making it better. We're still going to stick with our core areas. We're going to have the Southeast, the Northeast, the Midwest, the Northwest, and the Southwest. We also still have the same reporters that you interacted with last year and discussed with last year and basically shared your season with last year. So we have all of the same people back this year, but we're going to have a lot of really cool guests, basically from the new Realtree 365 app that we just brought live about a month or two ago. So we're going to be having a lot of Realtree 365 show host guests on the Rut Report every single week. We're going to have a couple of them on tonight. But before we get into this too far, let me know, make sure you guys can hear me. Make sure and let me know if you can see me, because we don't want to get too far into this if we have any kind of technical issues. I think we're good to go, but I just want to be sure. We're super excited about it this year. We are partnered with Theissens. We are super excited to have them on board. They're going to be bringing the Rut Report to you guys this season for the next 18 weeks or so. And they have a great new line of products that they have just launched. And they have extremely good quality product. We're going to talk a little bit about that really quickly. They just launched their full product line on October the 1st. They are direct to consumer, so you can go to Thiessens.com to go and look at all the products that they have available. They basically have it broken down into 5 different categories: base layer, lightweight, midweight, heavyweight, and then rainwear. And we're going to really focus on, just briefly here, the lightweight suit. It is a great suit. I've tried it. I have it. It's moisture wicking, anti-odor treated material. Has really good quality articulated construction for that wide range of motion that you want, and especially for you bow hunters out there who need it. But what really stands out with Thiessens is their pricing. Their lightweight button-up shirt is $59.99. Lightweight long sleeve tee is $29.99. That's what I've got on here. The lightweight pants is $59.99. That's unheard of as far as the quality of material in this product and the pricing at which it is listed at. And then the lightweight short sleeve tee is $24.99. So we thank Thiessens for bringing the Rut Report to you guys this year, and we are super excited about that. Now, to reintroduce or to explain the Rut Report to those of you who are new, this is basically a weekly resource that we're going to bring to you all, explaining what's happening in the deer woods. Obviously, there's not a lot of rut happening right now, but it's not all about rut activity. It's about deer activity in general. We're talking all things deer hunting. So while there is a little bit of rut activity, and we're going to get to that here briefly and talk a little bit about that, we're covering all things whitetails. We have the same reporters as I mentioned earlier. We have myself in the Southeast. Josh Montgomery is covering the Northeast. Tyler Ridenauer is covering the Midwest. And then Patrick Mayteen is going to be covering the Northwest and Southwest regions as he did last fall. So that's that. We've introduced you to Thiessens. We've reintroduced you to our reporters. And the 2 Realtree 365 guests that we're going to have on tonight is none other than Realtree's own Michael Pitts. He's going to be joining us a little bit later. And we may or may not have Mr. Bart Goins on as well. He is actually getting ready for a hunt in Illinois. Doesn't know if he's going to have a good enough service to join us or not, but he may be joining us and telling us about his season and how it's been so far later on in the show. And we'll let you know whether or not that's going to happen. Now, for the good stuff, the Rut Report. It's hard to believe that another deer season is here, and for most, another rut will be soon. But a few places are really already in the thick of it, mostly in the deep south. But we're going to find out tonight which states those are, and it just might be in your neck of the woods. So there's a little bit of rut activity in the Southeast, and that's where we're starting at now. Florida has had the odd hot Florida has had the hottest action. The southern third of the peninsula, south of Sarasota, Sebring, and Vero Beach, that lateral line there, basically between Sarasota, Sebring, and Vero Beach, everything south of that has already really experienced their rut for the year. Their window was from late July to late August, with a peak around mid-August. Now, with the exception of a 100-mile radius that surrounds the Winter Haven area, the northern two-thirds of the peninsula is starting to heat up now. Expect decent localized and some on and off rut activity in these areas through the end of the month. Right now, the hottest counties, rut-wise, are down along the East Coast. Basically, the counties that are along the upper two-thirds of the peninsula and on the East Coast, those seem to be, according to reports, the hottest counties in Florida right now. But those, some of the ones that really pop out is Okeechobee, St. Lucie, Martin, Indian River, Brevard, Seminole, Volusia, Flagler, and Putnam. According to historical rut research data that's compiled and provided by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission, you should start seeing rut activity soon in and around Manatee, Sarasota, Highlands, Citrus, Gilchrist, Alachua, Lafayette, Taylor, Hamilton, Columbia, Baker, Union, as well as a few other surrounding counties as well. Now, moving on. And before I get too much deeper into the Southeast Rut Report, not all of the seasons are open up throughout the Southeast. Some states have not begun hunting yet. So even though not all the states are open, we're going to still tell you what the deer are doing. You need to make sure you check your season dates to be sure that you're legal and that you're able to get out there and you're following everything to the letter. But we're still going to cover every state in the Southeast, tell you exactly what the deer are doing, regardless, because if you have not started hunting yet, you probably will be here soon within the next week or so. So still valuable information as we lead into the season for those of you who haven't started hunting yet. Now, moving to Louisiana. A very small pocket in Louisiana is showing signs of rut activity. That's mainly parts of Cameron, Vermilion, and Iberia parishes. That's right there on the south part of the state. On the flip side, most of Louisiana is nowhere near that yet. In fact, according to our very own Slade Priest, who is with Realtree United Country, he says that there's even a few deer left in velvet. About 95% are out. He says 95% of the deer are out of velvet now. Scrapes and some rubs have definitely started showing up. Bucks that were buddies a week ago aren't friends anymore. And he says also some of their ranges are changing. Where they have been spending time all summer is not necessarily where they're hanging out at now. And that's to be expected. That's something that happens every year. So moving to North Carolina, there's a very small area on the East Coast that historically sees rut activity right about now. I don't have any real-time reports coming from there. I'm just relying on historical data. But the county that really pops out this time of year, historically speaking, is Hyde County. And that's basically the only area that you're going to see much rut activity, if any at all, in North Carolina. And again, it is right there on the East Coast, just as with Florida. It is a coastal county. But you can expect some of the other coastal counties to experience some localized peak rut activity within the next 2 weeks, maybe the next 15 days, 18 days, somewhere in there. Moving to South Carolina, it's basically singing a similar tune as North Carolina. Some of the southern coastal counties in the low country are reporting some increased volumes of scrapes and rubs. Peak rut activity is likely only 2 to 3 weeks out for Brunswick, New Hanover, Pender, Onslow, and Jones counties. So that's something to take note of there. Those are the only areas that we're having any, rut reports or, signs of the rut coming soon in the Southeast. The rest of the states, we're still going to talk about those here briefly. There's no rut to speak of throughout the rest of the Southeast. There's obviously no rut in Kentucky yet. That's where I'm at. That's where I spend most of my time. Deer aren't quite doing their thing here yet. It's been really slow. I've not even got out in the woods very much the last couple of weeks, simply because the deer aren't doing much. They're moving very short distances from their beds in daylight, and really the only good hunting right now is mornings. So it just hasn't quite gotten to that point where it's got me excited yet. However, we're going to have a big temperature swing this weekend, and I think this Friday, between Friday and Saturday, is really going to be the kickoff for the good hunting here in October. We've got about a 15 to 18, depending on where you're at in the state, degree swing within 24 hours. So that's always something to take note of, especially if they get up there in that 20 plus degree swing range. As far as when our rut activity, those of you who are in Kentucky, you know our rut is in the middle of November. It's just like the northern half of the country. It's very much the same as your other Midwestern states, such as Kansas, Indiana, Illinois, Ohio. There's not a whole lot of difference. There are differences, a few, give or take, plus or minus a few days, but for the most part, it is going to be that middle 2 weeks of November. So we're not quite there yet, obviously. Moving to Tennessee, we're going to talk a little bit about mass crops. Mass crops are spotty this year. You either have them or you don't. And if you have them, you have a lot. So that's going to be a factor going into the rest of the season. If areas that have really heavy mass crops, that's going to affect the deer movement most certainly. You're not going to see those deer move as far in daylight because they simply don't have to travel as far from their beds before they start hitting food sources. So that's something to keep in mind. The same has been going for both Kentucky and Tennessee as far as the mass crop goes. That's what the reports are telling me. But that's what we know. Crops are beginning to come out too in Kentucky and Tennessee. Focus on those cut cornfields and definitely focus on any remaining green soybeans. Those are gold mines this time of year. And that's something that I'm going to be focusing on this weekend. I have one little spot in an area that is full of ag. There's about a 3 to 4 acre spot that is still solid green, bright green, looks like something that a leprechaun would have in his hand, the little green clovers. Well, these are green soybeans, and I hope they're my lucky ticket to a big buck this weekend. We'll see. But definitely, if you have any remaining green soybeans at all on any property you have permission to hunt on, whether that be private or public, definitely key on that. That window is going to close rapidly here soon. Now, Virginia, it's in the same boat. It traditionally experiences a mid-November rut. That said, bachelor groups are breaking up. Bucks are beginning to swell up a little. They're putting on some weight. The first rubs and scrapes are being found in the state there as well. Now, talking about Georgia, it's been hot down there, and we've got several people that we're pulling reports from, both here in the written reports that I'm looking at, as well as people we're going to have on tonight, such as Michael Pitts. But I talked to Realtree's own Philip Culpepper. He said it's been scorching. He said it's been scorching hot down there. He said he has a lease just north of Columbus. Even with the hot temps, there have been some nice rubs showing up. In just the last few days, he started seeing some respectable sized scrapes. The first cool snap, if they ever get it, should be a great ticket to some good hunting. He said the water oaks are starting to drop acorns right now, at least have been within the last couple of days. And he also said that deer are starting to push each other around. They're starting to spar a little bit. And he has a Spartan video, I think, that he posted on social media. If you want to go check out his accounts, his social media accounts on Instagram and Facebook, I believe he has posted that there. I also talked to bone collectors Travis T-Bone Turner. He said much the same about Georgia right now. He said it's extremely dry in Georgia. It's been the same up here in Kentucky too. But he said that the weather has hit record highs down there in September and early October. He has lots of nighttime trail camera photos. He said folks that he knows aren't even hunting right now. He said that they're attending church more often and doing rain dances daily. So keep dancing. It hasn't worked yet. He has noticed, though, that deer start hanging onto their velvet a little bit longer this year, too. So that's something to think about as well. It's not a super common thing to be able to shoot a velvet deer in Georgia. So for those of you who might have had the opportunity or might still have the opportunity, get out there and check those cameras. You might still have some velvet hanging on. And then finally, according to the Georgia DNR, the only Georgia counties that historically even hint at any rut activity this time of year are down in the southeastern parts of the state, and that's Chatham, Bryan, Liberty, McIntosh, Glenn, and Camden. But even there, the good stuff is still 2 to 3 weeks out. That seems to be the area with the highest concentration of rubs and scrapes and other rut sign as of right now. Finally, Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi, it's full of inactivity right now. The crickets are loud, and there is little going on there at the moment. All the deer are looking for swimming pools, sipping Capri Suns, and working on their tan lines. So they're all in the summertime and early season pattern still. That's all I have for the Southeast. I think we're going to be going to Mr. Michael Pitts here momentarily. I'm going to give Michael just a minute to make sure he's ready to go. I see you there, Michael. Excuse me, I covered the camera up. But I'm going to read through the comments briefly, make sure we don't have any questions, and then we'll be ready to go. I don't think, let me look here on this other thing, because I'm not shaking the camera screen on you guys. I don't think we have any major questions for the Southeast just yet. We'll get to them here in a minute if we do. We're going to try to go ahead and get Mr. Michael Pitts on. Let's see here. Michael, we're coming at you. So far, so good.
All right. There we go. Doing good. How about yourself, my friend?
I'm doing fine. Good to see you.
Good to see your face. Hey, it ain't a pretty one. It's a face, you know. Hard work. Okay. Yeah. Doing good. How about yourself, my friend?
I'm doing fine.
I got a little bit of feedback. Yeah, hey, it ain't a pretty one. It's a face, you know. Doing good. How about yourself, my friend?
We had a little bit of feedback there. I'm not sure what that was from. We will try again on that. Sometimes when Facebook Live events, we have technical things we have to work through.
That sounds a little bit better.
That's right. It does sound better.
It does sound better. Yeah.
Myself,
yeah, a little bit. Hear myself, but you're going to be talking. I don't know if you want to hear me talking. What do you want to talk about?
Tell us what's happening in Georgia.
Tell us what's happening in Georgia before that. Tell us about your recent
tell us a little bit about your
Okay, recent health scare I had was basically on October 2nd. I was having some chest pains, ended up going to the doctor. Long story short, ended up having 100% blockage in my LAD. And basically that's what they call the widowmaker. And so I ended up, they tried to put a stent in, couldn't get the stent in, tried from several different directions, and it just wasn't happening. So they scheduled me for a coronary robotic assisted bypass surgery is what they actually did. And they cut you in 3 places, and in 2 places the robotic arms go in. Then you got a camera that goes in the other one. And basically what they do is they snip an artery that's near the heart, and they tie it in actually below the blockage. And then that artery feeds the left side of my heart. So just now getting recovered from it, and actually on the 26th was my 6-week mark when I was fully healed up. He was going to let me go full bore. So I'm back 100% now, back in the tree, spending some time in the tree. I actually cheated a little bit on my deadline of 6 weeks and went out and killed a couple of does. I think you see on Whitetail TV. Did that a little bit early. Wasn't supposed to do that, but I did lower my bow to 60 pounds, so I wasn't pulling all the weight I normally do.
No shame.
But, you know, that's a little bit. Yeah, that's a little bit right there with the health scare. And then my involvement with the Realtree 365 was they just came to me and asked me if I'd be interested in doing something like that. And I said, absolutely. I'm always, you know, wanting to help out the Realtree team in any which way I can. So, you know, absolutely, it was a no-brainer for me when they asked me to be a part of it. But it's going to be a fun series. I think it's going to be more of a do-it-yourself, hunting your own land kind of show. You know, we're hanging our own stands, we're putting feed out, we're doing everything, you know, that the normal average Joe would do, and that's what's going to make it unique. Also, besides the fact that it will be weekly coverage, so it'll be like a soap opera, I guess you could say. You can follow it. You know, I wonder if Tyler's going to kill this deer, or if Roger's going to kill that deer this week. So it'll be something interesting you can follow, and I think it'll do great. So if you hadn't downloaded the Realtree 365 app, you need to. It's got absolutely everything you want to see hunting wise, from duck hunting to turkey hunting to deer hunting to comedy stuff to whatever you want to see. It's a one-stop shop. So download the app.
And there'll be a lot
of
activity on there. And there'll be a lot of rut activity on there as well.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt there'll be a lot of rut activity. But as far as what's going on around here, it's been real slow. It's been brutally hot, unseasonably hot. Records have been broke, here for late September, early October. It's extremely dry. We don't even have food plots in yet because we've had no moisture in the past well over a month. And so we don't even have food plots or any of that stuff in the ground. So we're way behind. Good thing is some of the oaks are starting to drop, some of your water oaks. Squirrels are starting to cut some of the white oaks, so you'll see some of those on the ground a little prematurely. But, with acorn crop coming in, you'll start seeing some deer push onto those. Seeing some scrapes, seeing some, community scrapes versus just deer pawing at the ground a little bit right now. Not seeing much rubs, from that standpoint. I hadn't seen the territorial aspect of the bucks getting, real aggressive and establishing their territory lines yet. But seeing some scrapes, some bucks are starting to spar a little bit. Me and Stephen McNelly were hunting the other evening, and we looked back, and it was almost like the rut. It was a young buck, but a doe had come in, and then, about a minute behind him, a young buck came in with his nose to the ground and kind of stopped and pawed at the ground a little bit. It was almost like a rut scenario, but with a young buck, So they're, some of your younger bucks are dabbling with it a little bit, but typically we won't see the actual full rut till about the second week of November. My favorite time to be in the woods, though, has always been about that last week of October when the pre-rut's in, and you'll catch those bucks moving a lot more, kind of checking out food sources, scanning for does. And, the last week of October, I know a bunch of people will disagree with me, but the last week of October is always one of my favorite times to hunt. The full rut, to me sometimes can get so busy and there's no patterning, and, they're just everywhere trying to chase does. So you kind of got to get lucky in those situations. But that pre-rut, in the last week of October has always been my favorite. But they'll start laying down some territorial lines here for long. We got some colder weather. I'm not going to say cold by any means, because we've been beat down by heat. We've been in the mid-90s, and it hadn't let up. But starting about Monday, we should be dropping to the lower 80s, and actually some of the temperatures getting, low to around, 53 to 55 degrees in the morning time. So that ought to spark a little bit more activity too, and we do have a little bit of moisture in the forecast for the early coming up week, but I don't trust it anymore. They have it in there all the time, but it never shows up. So, hopefully we'll get some of that and get some food plots in and get things set up like we typically do. But right now it's just a cat and mouse game. It seemed this year to me, when the deer lost their velvet, they really went scatterbrained. And they started disappearing and going everywhere. All summer long, we had good deer at almost every stand site. And it seems like when they lost their velvet, everything just started kind of disappearing and, sparse activity here or there. But I look for this cold weather, these acorns dropping and stuff of that to get them kicked back up. And that's when they'll change their patterns. They're going from that summer pattern, and it'll start kind of blending into a fall-winter pattern with all these acorns starting to hit the ground and all that. So things are going to kind of change up for us these next 2 weeks, I believe, as far as the deer's pattern, and maybe seeing some deer you've never seen before, because they'll be in different areas when those acorns start dropping and some of that testosterone level starts kicking in and that sort of thing. So looking forward to the next few weeks for sure, because there's going to be a big swing, bunch of different deer, a bunch of different activities. So looking forward to it, absolutely.
Good. What are some tips or advice that you have for those out there who have some health problems, with your recent health scares or thoughts? You kind of have what tips you have for other people who might be
A similar situation. Yeah, basically, I had to gear everything back. I started out, I couldn't drive for the first month. So, I mean, really, it was like high school. I was calling friends going, hey, can you take me here? Hey, can you take me there? So it was a totally different mindset of getting stuff done. But, when I had to get out of the house, I would, call somebody, take me here, take me there. I really had to do something I'm not used to doing, and that's rely on others. I'm lucky enough to have a lot of great friends and family that was willing to help me out in my time of need. So the biggest thing is learn that it's okay to ask for help in situations where you need it. It was hard for me to do, but I did it, and, people were really, really good about helping me out and this and that. So the biggest thing is just to ask for help. Don't be ashamed to ask for help. And I had to gear it down. I had to change some things up, like I lowered my bow. I typically shoot 70 pounds, on the Hoyt, but, I geared it down. I lowered it all the way to 55, actually, as low as it could comfortably go 6 turns out. And that got me down to about 55. And I started there and just started shooting in the shop, just blind bailing, trying to build my muscle memory back up a little bit. And then I went up 60 pounds and, got comfortable, and started hunting at 60 pounds. But, I shot 2 does a couple of weeks ago. And at 60 pounds, shooting a Rage and an Easton Era, I mean, it just blistered right through them. So, 60 pounds is totally enough. And a lot of people are doing that nowadays anyhow, because today's bows are so efficient. You can shoot less poundage and keep the speed up as you used to on a fully 70-pound bow of 10 years ago. So, a lot of it, you just got to gear everything down and take a slower pace. It's some of the things I was doing. I usually walk a lot, real far going into my stand. Typically, sometimes, 3/4 of a mile to a mile, I might walk going into a stand set. And I've been pushing the limits and going in a golf cart a little closer, parking it off the trail, so I'm not walking quite as far. You just got to really pay attention to slowing down, gearing everything down. And the main thing is not to push too hard. Know your body, know what you're feeling, and it'll let you know what you can and can't do. But yes, I had to really gear everything down, from my bows to my walking to, just everything, asking friends for help, so those are some of the tips I have if you're having some health issues or whatever. That's some of the stuff I did that definitely helped me out. The biggest thing were my friends and family, helping me get through it and helping me out every step of the way. But it was weird to sit there while they're doing the work. I will say that. But, you got to do it. You got to look out for yourself. And if people are willing to help, let them help.
Well, absolutely. We're just
Where can everybody follow your story? Oh, I've got an Instagram that's at The Real Pit, and that's where everything's going. I've got a lot of stuff that goes through Realtree social media, so follow Realtree Outdoors on their Facebook page and their Instagram accounts. A lot of my stuff will go through there. And pretty much you can keep track of everything, I'm doing. Being it's the time of the year it is, and I'm getting healed up and back out and about, I'll be posting a lot more on my Instagram and staying in contact with a lot more people. So I do have another Facebook page. It's called Michael Pitts Outdoors that I'm about to kind of fire back up. It's been idle for a little while, but I'm about to fire it back up. Personal page got maxed out, so I had to roll over into kind of a different page to where I could accept more people. So I'll get that back going now that I'm back up on my feet and all that kind of stuff. So pretty much through social media and Realtree social media and everything, you can pretty much keep track of me.
Good deal. Well, thanks for your update tonight.
Yeah. And we'll take you up. Absolutely. Enjoyed it. Y'all take care.
Thanks, man. God bless.
Thanks, man. God bless.
All right, guys, there you have it from Mr. Pitts himself. I apologize if there were some audio issues there. We're going to work through those as we continue with the rut report. We'll get the kinks worked out as we get into week 2 and week 3, I'm sure. If the audio is better now, please drop a note in the comments. Let me know. We're going to be going to the Northeast region here with Josh here momentarily. There were a couple of comments that I wanted to get to here because, as I said, please interact with us. This is all about you guys. This isn't about us. So if you have any questions that you want to put out there, or if you have rut updates of your own, please drop them in the comments. We will share your questions. We will respond to your questions. And we will also share your rut reports. If you have an update on your area, we want to hear it. So we had a note here momentarily, or excuse me, here a moment ago from Austin. Yeah, he was thanking someone for an update. Rusty Black says that the acorns are coming down pretty heavy there in Pennsylvania. The bucks have just recently broke up. Young bucks are sparring pretty frequently, and they're finding rubs all over. He's getting some really good activity on his cameras and in the stand there. I think he said in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. So that is a perfect example of what we want everybody to do. Please drop your questions for one, but more importantly, your own rut updates and your rut reports. Please put them in the comments section. That way we can share them with everybody else out there. That said, we're going to go to the Northeast region here and try to get our resident Northeastern guy, Josh Montgomery, in the house. We're sending a request to him now. Should be accepting it here momentarily. How you doing, Josh?
Good. How you doing?
Doing good. Audio's a little bit better on this one, I think. You able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good deal. You're coming in loud and clear. I think you're coming in loud and clear for everybody else too. But if you're not, if anybody out there, tell us if we're having any audio issues, any video issues. Please tell us. But I think we're good to go now. Josh, introduce yourself to those out there who maybe weren't with us last year. Tell them who you are. Tell them who you're with, and just basically enlighten everybody because you have a lot of big buck knowledge.
All right. I'm Josh Montgomery. I'm located in Central Maryland. It's where I pretty much spend most of my time hunting. I don't leave Maryland much for deer. I'm with Midwest Whitetail. Been with Midwest Whitetail for a few years. Got a ton of guys with Midwest Whitetail. Got their website. They're on YouTube, and now they're obviously with the on the 365 app now this year. So we got a ton of stuff and ton of deer action that has kicked off the last few weeks, and there's just a ton of action you guys can find, like I said, on the website, YouTube, and 365 with guys all over the country pretty much. So it's good stuff.
Good deal. Tell us what's happening in the Northeast.
So I'll just start here at home. Just my few times I've been out, lucky to get out here. It was like 93 degrees today here in Maryland, so it's been pretty warm. It has been for the most part. Our season started a few weeks ago, and it's just pretty much been warm weather for the most part. We had a couple days here and there where it cooled off a little bit, but as most of you guys said, we got a really good cold front coming through this weekend, and that's probably pretty much for a lot of people, always from down your way all the way up to the very top of the Northeast. So
right.
I'm definitely excited for that, and hopefully I can spend some time in the woods this weekend. And if anybody else can in the Northeast, it's definitely time to get out there and get after them. So
what's the rut sign, rubs and scrapes looking like up there?
I actually was just scouting a fairly new spot with a buddy and found my first rub just this past weekend. Seen a couple scrapes here and there, at least in my area. Nothing too serious. But I can bet with all this cool weather coming in, it'll definitely probably get them up, moving around, and feeling a little frisky. It's supposed to go, I think, lows down in the 50s, low 50s, and I spoke with a buddy up in New York, and they're actually supposed to get into the 30s. So
That's
it definitely should boost the deer activity overall. But I'm still seeing bucks in my spots, still kind of grouped up. I got one good buck that I'm after that he's still hanging out with the same group pretty much that he was at the summertime. And then I've talked to a few guys, and it's hit or miss here or there. It's kind of in that range of summer to fall now, where some people are still seeing groups of bucks, some people are seeing them break up, and obviously the further we get into October, the more they're going to break up, and the more aggressive, I guess you can say, they'll get. But so not a whole lot right now.
Very good. That shift, that fall range shift that we always hear about and people are always griping about every season, it always happens for most people in most states, especially in the Midwest, to the upper Southeast and the Northeast where you are. That generally happens from mid-September to mid-October. And like you said, the further we get into October, the more likely it's going to happen if it hasn't already. A lot of the places that I hunt here at home, we see bucks show up between October 15th and 25th, and then they stay all the way through the rut. So if they haven't shifted already and you don't have a target buck on camera, maybe you're out there and you don't have a deer on camera, or you haven't seen a deer that you want to shoot, don't worry about it. There's still plenty of time for deer to transition from their summer to their fall ranges. There's other factors, hunting pressure too, that could push them into new areas. You never know what can happen. There's still definitely time for bucks to take up residence on your properties for sure.
Definitely. I picked up a new buck I guess it was this past weekend. Picked up a new buck same spot I've been running cameras all summer, or most of the summer, and first time he just popped in there one day and was gone. Seemed like a decent 3-year-old, but it's definitely starting. So I'll just jump into talked with fellow Midwest Whitetail Pro staffer Austin Beebe up in southeastern Pennsylvania. Similar stuff. He's still seeing bucks grouped up. He had an encounter with one of his target bucks, a mature buck still hanging with the younger bucks. Deer, he's got some decent activity on scrapes in his area. A lot of deer movement, mostly at night still. I would say mature deer movement is mostly at night still. Overall, deer activity's been okay, with deer feeding heavy on acorns right now, which seem to be doing pretty good in his area there in southeastern Pennsylvania. See here, getting messages on my phone. And then I spoke with Cody Jarrett with Whitetail Freaks out in northern West Virginia. And same thing, I think their season just started this past weekend as well. Same thing, dealing with the warmer temperatures. Seeing a lot of bucks grouped up, or younger bucks still grouped up, and he's just starting to see some of his mature bucks going solo in his area. Seeing some light sparring with the younger bucks. Let's see. Still, most of the mature buck movement is at last light and at night still. He hasn't noticed much for scrapes or rubs yet. And the deer are really hitting clover and acorns, and the acorns seem to be the hot food right now there in northern West Virginia, and he's got a pretty good acorn crop.
What species seem to be the most prominent this year up there?
He wasn't specific on the species of acorns.
It seems like here in Kentucky, of course, that's obviously a localized thing, and it's different from not just state to state or county to county, but from property to property. Here, It seems to be the red oaks are the most prominent this season, at least here in South Central Kentucky. I've heard similar reports from other people throughout the lower Midwest and probably the lower part of the Northeast. I can't speak for West Virginia. I haven't talked to anyone there, but it seems like the red oaks have been more prominent this year than the white oaks. Again, that can vary obviously from property to property. There's a lot of factors in play there. But I'll tell you, the soft mass crop has been huge here this season so far. The persimmons have a heavier crop on the places that I hunt than I've seen in several years, probably 3 to 4 anyway. So it's been a very good year, not only for red oaks, but a lot of our soft mass crops out there. How's the soft mass crop been up there in the Northeast?
One of my properties, I've definitely had some good trees, persimmons trees that are definitely loaded up this year. But as you said, white oaks on a particular property, this one small property I have, I've been waiting 4 or 5 years for just to have a couple big white oaks on it. And when they drop, the deer go crazy, and it's great hunting. But I've been waiting 3 or 4 years now, and they haven't dropped yet. So they can definitely vary from, like you said, property to property. I have another property where it seems the white oaks drop every year. So definitely got to just, it's all scouting every year and just keeping up with everything.
Right. Good deal.
But I'll jump right over in. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to jump. I'm skipping through some comments here. I was going to jump over into Delaware. I spoke with Josh Tucker, and he's starting to notice scrapes popping up in the familiar spots, community scrapes. Bucks have begun to break up, and let me see here. And Josh is hoping he has actually had some bucks kind of disappear on him. He's hoping to find back, as a few of them have kind of shifted their ranges on him there. And I do have specific oaks. Josh has red oaks and pin oaks that are dropping there in Delaware, and he's still waiting for the white oaks to start dropping where he is. Let me see. Josh has some green food plots, which the last few weeks the deer have been hitting really good on some green food plots the last couple of weeks. But like you said, red oaks and pin oaks in Delaware, and he has his white oaks that seem to be still holding there, not dropping yet. And I've noticed a few of my area white oaks that have just started to fall, a few here and there, and it may be from just the squirrels, but they're not really dropping yet as far as I've seen, at least in my area for white oaks.
Gotcha. It's been so dry here lately. I don't know if you've been dealing with drought in the Northeast, but here in Kentucky and much of the Southeast, it's been very dry. And, a lot of the food sources out there have started to dry up. And so I've been seeing the limited number of times that I've been in a tree so far, which has not been many. It seems like the deer have been browsing much more frequently than they typically do this time of year. And I don't know if that has to do with how dry it's been. There are still other food sources out there available, but it seems like the deer have been hitting just good old-fashioned natural browse more than they typically do in late September and early October. Have you seen the same in the Northeast?
Yeah, it's been super dry. I planted some smaller fall plots around was it August, beginning of August or so, and I haven't had any rain since, and the plots are still dirt. So it's been horrible, at least in this central area in Maryland where I'm at, and it's been super dry. And I'm just keep waiting to get some rain to try to save those plots, but it just keeps getting later in the season, and I'm not too sure if I'm going to be able to save them or not. But it's been super dry here.
Jason Alger says he's had a few smaller bucks moving early, but no mature bucks moving in daylight yet. He said there's a lot of standing corn in his area. Standing corn plays a huge role here in Kentucky. I'm sure it does in areas where it's located in the Northeast as well. I don't think that the whitetails bed in the standing corn. At least I don't think that they bed in standing corn quite like I used to think. But I do think what happens is when that standing corn is out there, deer will bed in pockets of cover that's within that corn or on the fringes of that corn. So, little quarter-acre woodlots, or a brush pile that's in the middle of a cornfield. An area that a farmer couldn't plant because of the terrain, or maybe it was too wet at the time. Whatever the case might be, I think deer bed up in these pockets of covers within the cornfields a lot this time of year until they come out. And I actually did a test this summer, and I put up a lot of trail cameras in areas like that, little pockets of cover, whether it was an 1/8 acre woodlot or a brush pile, whatever it might be. I actually put my trail cameras on those that were located either on the fringes or inside of cornfields, and it blew my mind just how many deer actually live in those pockets. That's where they're spending their time. It's not that I don't think a lot of the deer are actually laying down in the middle of the cornfields. I think they're spending their times in those pockets. But it's something to think about, everybody out there. If you are dealing with a lot of standing corn, try to look over some aerial maps, study those things, and see if there are any little pockets of cover that those deer might be holding up in, either within or on the fringes of that corn. Is there much standing corn, standing crops left up your way, Josh?
Just locally around my way, I guess since it's been so dry, they were able to cut it. A lot of corn that I've seen has been cut. I've even seen some beans cut.
Yeah.
So
most of the corn has come out here too.
yeah, and I think that was a few weeks ago, probably right at the beginning of September. They were cutting corn already.
Good deal. Is there anything else that you can share with us from the Northeast?
I think that's about it. Other than obviously the big cold front, it's kind of like the first big cold front of the season.
Mm-hmm.
If you got time to get in the woods, it's definitely a good time to get out there. And obviously, it's just the start of October, and every week goes by, it just gets a little better. And I mean, that's pretty much it.
Here momentarily, we're going to be switching over and linking up with Tyler Ridenauer there in the Midwest. He's covering that region. We'll briefly look at the comments real quick, see if anybody has any questions. If anybody has any questions for Josh, please drop them in before he goes. Eric says that it's been wet, cool, and rainy all week so far. Hasn't been out since Saturday. That's a welcome trend for most of us who are throughout the country who are dealing with drought. I think it's been 25 or 26 days without rain here where I'm at. There is a question here from, I think it's Jeff Ashcraft. Let's see here. Any advice on late setups? My gun season starts October 19th. I still have stands to put up. I'm heading out this weekend to set up, but I don't want to mess up my woods with scent. Josh, what's your advice for him?
I mean, it probably all depends on your spots and locations. I mean, if you're going deep into the woods, it's probably a little worse than if you're going to closer to edges or whatnot. But if it's been dry here, so I was going to say maybe wait for maybe a rainy day. I like to go in and do stuff sometimes on rainy days or windy days when you keep your sound down, keep your scent down, stuff like that. But if you're going, it's still a few weeks out. As long as you can get in, maybe go in midday, be as quiet as you can, spray down, wear your boots and stuff like that, and just try to keep any disturbance to a minimum for the most part. And it's always good if it's a possibility to keep a hang and hunt in mind and kind of just scout from a distance now, watch your stuff and see what's going on and just, get in early and hang a setup or, even a climbing stand if you do that. But for the most part.
Absolutely. And remember those good entry and exit routes. Thanks for the question, Jeff. And if there's anybody else out there, if you have any other questions for the Northeast region after Josh leaves, same with the Southeast. If you jump on late or jump on after the fact, still put your comments in the comments section. We will get back to your questions. If we don't get to them in the live feed, we will respond to your questions with additional comments. So thanks, Josh. Thanks for joining us and explaining what's happening in the Northeast. Obviously, you can get the actual written reports after the fact as well. They'll be on Realtree.com in the rut report section in the deer nest. And so, Josh, thank you again, and we will see you next Wednesday night.
Definitely. Thanks.
Good luck this weekend.
You too.
All right, guys, you heard it from Josh Montgomery, a very, very knowledgeable deer hunter. We're going to be going over to the Midwest here momentarily with Tyler. We're going to be getting him on. He's going to tell us what's happening in the Midwest, explain kind of what's been going on. He's already filling deer tags, y'all, so he knows what's up. We're going to get Tyler on here and see if we can get some Midwest intel here momentarily.
Hey Josh, how we doing?
Doing good. Can you hear me?
Yep, got you good.
Good deal. So before we jump into the report, tell us a little bit about who you are. For those that are new, who did not join us on the Rut Report last year, tell us who you are and just tell a little bit about yourself.
All right, I'm from Southern Michigan, born and raised here. Hunt here a fair bit when I'm home, but I do travel quite a bit throughout the Midwest and Western U.S. Primarily a bow hunter and do a fair bit of content for Realtree.com. Been involved in the industry for a number of years, and just excited to be back for another year doing the Rut Report.
Yeah, and you're already filling deer tags. Tell us where you've been so far.
I started out in Nebraska and spent a couple weeks out there. I was able to kill a decent public land buck, and then wife came out and hunted with me. And then I went from there over to Wyoming, met up with a buddy and killed a few antelope out there, and then went down to Arizona for about a week and a half chasing elk, and that was a tough hunt. Came up empty-handed on that one, so I've only been home about 4 days, not long. So getting back in the swing of things. Our deer season just opened here in Michigan yesterday, so got home just in time.
Well, you pretty much just had like a brief early retirement there with all those hunting trips that you just had lined up. But I'm glad you had, and I'm glad you were able to get some venison for the freezer already, and before it was even up.
Yeah.
So congratulations on your deer there in Nebraska, and I'm sure that elk hunt was fun, even though you didn't fill a tag. So without,
Oh yeah.
With that, tell us a little bit about what's happening in the Midwest. I know there's obviously not much, activity going on, but tell us what the deer are doing.
Yeah, I mean, really the biggest news is this cold front. You and Josh touched on it, and it's pushing through. It's already pushed through some parts. It's settled into some parts of the Midwest. Actually, up in North Dakota tonight, they're supposed to get snow, and it's been hot there. Just a couple days ago, it was quite warm, and there's several parts of the region where it's been in the 80s and even 90s, and it's going to drop 20, 30 degrees in a matter of a day and a half. So being it's early October, I mean, that's all you could really ask for, as an early October hunter. Anytime you get in the first 3 weeks of October, you get one of these significant cold fronts. I mean, it's like flipping a light switch. The deer get on their feet, and they're really great to key in anytime in October. But being it's the first weekend of October, a lot of states here in Michigan, as well as many others, it's a lot of guys' first times out, and these deer haven't been hunted. They're still on, early season feeding patterns, and combine that with this major cold front. It's really going to be a good time to capitalize if you've got a buck you've been watching all summer, and he's on a pattern. I'm play it pretty safe most of the time, but with the way it's lining up for this weekend, and even today, tomorrow, for some of the states that are a little bit further north and west, the Dakotas into Nebraska, the next couple of days are going to be outstanding. So it may be time to kind of push the envelope a little bit and get in there after a buck if you've been watching one all summer.
Sure. That's the same thing here in Kentucky, which, some might say that Kentucky is a fragment of the Midwest or very similar to the Midwest. That's what we're going to be doing here. I'm also hunting in Ohio quite a bit, and we're following some big deer up there as well. So I don't know where I'm going to cash in this early season cold front. I don't know if it'll be Kentucky or Ohio just yet, but we'll see. But regardless of where everybody hunts, basically the northern half of the country, as you said, is going to be experiencing the first truly good opportunity of the season as far as weather is concerned. And if you can at all be in a tree, you definitely need to be in a tree. And it's going to be different, as you said. It's already pushing through some areas. I know for Kentucky, the hot day is going to be Friday afternoon because we've got about a 15 to 18 degree swing between Friday and Saturday, I think it is. Thursday afternoon is not going to be bad either, but I think the best day is going to be Friday afternoon. Saturday's morning is going to be pretty good as well. And this is probably the first time. This is actually the first time I'm going to hunt mornings for the year. I've been limiting myself to afternoons thus far. But with this cold front going and moving through, if you have stands set up in areas that are good that you can get into and out of without bumping deer, that you can slip in there before daylight, if you can get in without blowing deer out, this is probably going to be one of the first best times to get after them.
Yeah, absolutely.
What kind of rut activity?
I can jump in.
Before we jump into your...
Yeah, I can jump in and go state by state here a little bit. So here in Michigan, yeah, I mean, we got the whole Midwest, we got this big front coming through. But here in Michigan, as far as, right now, even with, the cold front, food is key, no matter where you're at. we had a pretty good red acorn crop. White acorns are almost non-existent here, at least in my area. I was actually out today in the rain. We've got yesterday and today we had rain with all this low pressure ahead of this front, and out checking cameras. And some of those red oaks are probably still at 50%. They're holding. So if you've got a good spot where it's still dropping oaks, those can be key right now. Other parts of the Midwest, it's kind of spotty this year. There's some places where there's almost no acorns, some areas where it's pretty decent. So, but as far as food sources here in Michigan right now, green food sources, alfalfa, clover plots, what have you, seem to be absolute number one where everything's heading to. And if you do have acorns, obviously focus on that, especially if you've got acorns in a transition area where they're going to browse on those on their way out to a green food source. It's going to be absolutely money. So I'm going to jump down to Ohio. I talked to Clint McCoy. He's the deer biologist for the state of Ohio down there. And today it was 91 in Columbus, I think he said. And by Friday, they're supposed to be in the 60s. So pretty significant swing. They started last Saturday with their season, and it's going to be, really good weekend down there in Ohio, I think. And cold weather's supposed to stick around there into next week. So definitely some good opportunities to be had. They have a pretty poor mass crop, so acorns are pretty limited if you can find them. With such a limited crop, they're probably going to get gobbled up quick, so I'd sit on them before they're gone.
You know how many?
And same thing down there, Green. Go ahead.
I went and scouted our Ohio lease and here recently within the past few days. You know how many acorns I found?
One. Well, they're not many. One. Yeah.
So,
yeah, pretty limited down there. Another thing you had to say as far as food sources, with all the rain that they had this spring, like most of the Midwest, they had a lot of wet fields and a lot of fields went fallow, and it just limited the overall food sources that are available, this time of year. And a lot of stuff got planted late, as it did here in Michigan, and all over the country. And they've actually still got some green soybeans to be had down there too. So that's not to be overlooked. If you're down in that part of the country, that can be a really good food source. And typically doesn't go this late into the year, but take advantage of it with the circumstances that we got. So I mentioned North Dakota, just kind of unique. They're getting snow up there tonight. High pressure, cold temps rolling in tomorrow after that. So if you're up that way, get in a tree, as in with most of the Midwest. Nebraska. Cold front moved in yesterday. They had like a 20-some degree swing in highs. I was there, as we talked about earlier in the year last month, and there's almost no acorns, at least where I was at in the state. I mean, I've been there in years past where you almost trip, like walking on marbles, because there's so many acorns, and I didn't see a single acorn when I was out there this year, not on the trees nor on the ground. So. And same deal, they've had a lot of flooding. A lot of people probably heard about this spring in Nebraska. Really, really got it bad this spring. And there's a ton of stuff that's not planted. So where there is good green food sources right now is dynamite. So focus on that. I stopped in Kansas on my way home from that elk hunt, hung some cameras up. I'll be there next month. And a lot of good rubs actually starting to show up down there already. And same deal, green food sources and milo down there. Saw a lot of deer and alfalfa fields in the evenings when I was down there. And some of those farmers have got their wheat in already. That wheat's starting to pop. So that's something to pay attention to if you're in that part of the country.
Yeah.
And rounding it out, I talked to Steve Gillickson up in Wisconsin. Got a pretty decent acorn crop and lots of corn still standing, as we do here in Michigan with all this rain. Recently, and some of these cornfields are still green. I mean, they can't chop them yet. Everything's so wet still. But seeing good rubs and scrapes starting to pop up there as well. And same deal, this cold front moving through up there. It should be a really good weekend, and into next week should be great.
Good deal. Steve Gullickson, as you just mentioned, he said any more rain up there in east central Wisconsin, and he's going to need a boat to get to his tree stands. You might want to invest in Thiessens rainwear. I hear that it keeps you dry.
Yeah.
So Steve, if you get back out there and it's wet, you might need to try some of that. But yeah, it's really interesting how the precipitation has played a role this year, not just in season, but as early as spring and summer. It's affected the planting process throughout the year, and now it's obviously affecting deer in even bigger ways, and more severe ways. We've had some issues with not only drought but EHD here in Kentucky. It's not been as bad as it was in 2017, but it's been fairly more severe than we would hoped. There's been quite a few, virtually not every county, but I don't have the exact statistics in front of me. I've looked at the map, I think yesterday, and I want to say about 70% of counties have reported EHD in Kentucky so far. Luckily, it's been a very low number of reports within each county. Most of them are only like 1 to 5 as far as the number of official reports goes. But yeah, you can go to, for those of you who are in Kentucky, you can monitor the EHD spread on the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife's resources page. They have a map that they update there weekly, and you can kind of keep track of your area to see, whether, EHD potentially could be a factor in your county if you're not finding deer yourself. How has EHD affected and impacted those of you in the Midwest?
I haven't heard of any cases here at home. Not to say it hasn't happened. We did have a few weeks, a dry spell, but overall we've had decent amounts of rain, scattered out here and there. And I haven't heard of any in Kansas, but they have had about the last 6 weeks, maybe 2 months. It's been really dry, especially in the western half of Kansas. But it's just kind of spotty, with this drought and severe rain in different parts of the region. You get up into Nebraska, and still, when I was out there in early September, they got a foot of rain in 48 hours. Unreal, so, flash flooding and whatnot. So it really depends where you're at. But I haven't heard of any super severe cases, but that's not to say I've had my ear to the ground really either. I've been living out of a tent for the last couple of weeks. So
you've been on a mountain. So the only areas that I've personally heard about, anything that really amounted to much was southern Iowa. I know they've been dealing with a little bit there, and the only reason I know that is because we've been reporting on it here on Realtree.com. Southern Iowa, there's been some reports, as well as southern Illinois and southern Indiana. But for the most part, it doesn't seem like a bad outbreak here for EHD, other than maybe southern Iowa, southern Illinois, and southern Indiana. Everywhere else, it's pretty localized. It's pretty minimal for the most part, as best I can tell. As EHD is a factor every single year now. It seems to be more common,
right.
But that might not be the case. It just might be because we're reporting on it more, and we have social media now. So there's a lot of different reasons why it might seem as if EHD is more severe than it used to be. It's been around, or at least we've been aware of it, I believe, since the 60s. So it's not a new thing. It's been around for quite some time, and it's just it's Mother Nature, and she's going to do what she's going to do, and you just gotta roll with the punches, so to speak. So, is there anything else that you can share with us tonight from the Midwest?
I don't think so. I think we kind of touched on everything, and just get after it this weekend for sure, because it's going to be a good one. Pretty rare we get a really good cold front like this early in October. So just good luck to everybody out there. Be safe and have fun.
Good deal. Patrick, we're going to be going over to Patrick Mayteen in the West here momentarily. As of right now, I'm not able to add you, Patrick. You may have to fix your permissions on your phone. I'm not sure. You should be set to go. I know it was working for you earlier when we tested it, but jump out and jump back in, Patrick. We'll come to you momentarily and see if we can get your Western reports. I don't think we have any questions. Bob has a quick and easy report. He says, wait until the second week in November. What's your thoughts on that, Tyler?
Yeah, that's always a good time to be in the woods. That's for sure.
There you go. Good deal. Good to hear. Good to hear from you, Todd. I know we had a lot of good stuff, a lot of good questions and commentary from you last year. And Steve said over 40 inches of rain thus far here in Wisconsin. New all-time record. He says EHD is not there, and that is a great point. EHD, it seems to be worse in times of drought. Obviously, epizootic hemorrhagic disease, for those of you who don't know what EHD stands for, it is a disease that is transmitted by a midge fly, a biting fly, probably the most commonly known as the no-see-ums. So it's not something that's transmitted from deer to deer. It's transmitted from midge fly to deer, and it's only transmitted from those midge flies that actually carry the EHD virus. But as Tyler was talking about and alluding to, as well as Steve, it seems to be worse in years there's drought, because those midge flies, whenever the waters recede, it creates mud banks, and mud banks are breeding grounds for the EHD ridden midge fly. So what we really need is not super heavy rain. We just need consistent rain to keep those mud banks from forming, because if we get a lot of heavy rain all at once, that creates mud banks as well, because it recedes back down lower than it typically is. So we need good, consistent rain. Hopefully we'll get that soon throughout the Midwest and Southeast, where EHD has been of at least minimal impact, or a minimal factor so far. And then hopefully we'll get the first frost here soon too, which, that's, I don't see it on the 10-day forecast anywhere, but that's really the end date for EHD each year, in years that it is a factor. That first frost is really what terminates that threat. So I think we're going to jump on here momentarily and try to get Patrick. I still not able to add him on, but maybe I can here in a minute. Tyler, thank you for your report this week, and we will touch base with you next Wednesday night.
All right, sounds good. Good luck to everybody out there.
Good luck this weekend.
Thanks.
All right, let's see if we can get Mr. Mayteen on here momentarily. Just while he is getting out, maybe Mr. Mayteen, if you could get back off, exit out and come back into it one more time. I'm not able to add you to the live for some reason, and we will get to that here momentarily. I want to see if we have any other questions, see if we have anything going on. I don't see any major thoughts. It's good to see everybody jumping on here, interacting with us. We appreciate that. That is a huge help for us, because this, like I said, this is just as much your report. It's more your report than it is ours. We want you guys to make this thing your own. We want you to put as much commentary and as many questions in there as you possibly can. And we will interact with you as much as possible, most certainly. So let's see. Patrick Mayteen, I'm still not able to add you. Let's see. Yes, I got you now, Patrick. We are adding Mr. Mayteen to the live feed.
How about that?
How you doing, Mr. Mayteen?
Good. I'm sitting out here watching the turkeys go to bed and the whitetail doe start to come out. So totally the opposite of what you guys are talking about.
We might have lost him just momentarily there, but this is typical. Mr. Mayteen lives on.
Oh, no, that was just some update thing just popped up on my phone, I guess. So.
Okay, no worries. We got you back.
Good deal. So,
we're
the opposite end of the spectrum. We're cold.
Tell us a little bit about who
Pardon
you
me?
are. Before we jump into the report, tell us a little bit about who you are, for those who are just joining the Rut Report for the first time this year and weren't with us last fall. Tell us a little bit about you, a brief intro, and then tell us what's happening in the Northwest.
Well, I originally lived down in New Mexico and Arizona, kicked around in that part of the world, outfitted and guided down there for 23 years. And then got married. My wife wanted some green. We moved up to northern Idaho, which is a perfect mix of all the western game and whitetail, which I really enjoy hunting. And been writing for outdoor magazines about 35 years, hunted all over the place, Africa and Canada and Alaska and most of the U.S. states, and just kind of moved up here so I could stick around home a little more.
Good deal. Well, tell us what's happening in the Northwest. What are the deer doing, or what have they been doing?
Well, the Northwest, kind of across the entire Northwest, is we've had an exceptionally cool and wet summer, spring. We never did really get into the super hot period of summer. Maybe a couple of weeks it got into the 90s, but it's been pretty cool and mild here. And it has remained very, very green here throughout the summer. We usually, July, August in particular, we usually dry completely out. We get 0% precipitation. And this year we actually got rain in July and August. So it has stayed green throughout the summer. And that has also caused the deer to maybe be a little more scattered. I haven't quite figured it out because I haven't seen this in 12 years. But I know that I'm just not getting as many.
Oh, we might have lost you. We may have lost him momentarily. Nope, we got him back.
Oh,
We're
We
good.
did have some drought about 3 years ago and a little EHD issues, so it did knock off our top end a tad. And so, I'm wondering if that's the problem. But I think there's just too much food.
Mm-hmm. We may have had another one. While he's, let's see here. You're good. We still have you.
But, I'm hoping that's
a little bit. We have to remind everybody out there that Mr. Mayteen lives on a mountaintop out in the sticks. He actually lives with the deer, so that's why we lose him from time to time.
Well, I plugged in my charger cord hoping it act as an antenna. Maybe that didn't work. Anyways, but like I talked to my buddy Dale Denny of Bear Paw Outfitters in Washington, and he says their deer herd's not doing that well. He attributes it to an overabundance of predators, which in Washington does make more sense. They don't hunt their mountain lions there anymore. That was a ballot initiative. They don't hunt their bears with hounds anymore. I don't know what the trapping situation is, but being liberal Washington is probably illegal. So, he attributes most of the problems in his area by Colville, north of Spokane, for overabundance of predators. Down here, we just had some rough years with the drought, like about 3 years ago with that EHD outbreak here. And then this year with the overabundance of food. So when your population gets bumped down a tad and then they're spread out more than normal, I think that explains what I'm seeing here. The overall, the herds are doing, the trophy quality has been really good this year. I had a couple really, big bomber bucks on camera right before the season started. They kind of disappeared. There was a couple of disturbances there that must have had something to do with it. So I kind of pulled over here closer to home hunting and saw some pretty good movement early. Right now, the bucks stripped I'd say about the 7th or 8th, a little bit early this year. They stripped their velvet and they really broke up quick. The buck that I shot on September 11th had another buck with him. Within another 3 or 4 days, I was seeing just nothing but lone bucks on cameras. And they've actually gone into the mature bucks in where I live. I haven't been up on top because I was elk hunting for a couple of weeks, but they're already turned nocturnal now. I'm seeing a lot of movement with the does throughout the day. I'm looking at deer right now, but the mature bucks for sure have gone nocturnal already, which is normal for this time of year. Our rifle season opens here about the 10th, I believe, and it's pretty tough going. That's mostly an elk season, but some deer are killed, and but it's going to be pretty tough for a guy to purposely target a mature buck, during those opening weeks. Montana, same deal. They've had a lot of moisture over there. I ran over I think it was like the 3rd week in July to go shoot some prairie dogs, and it was raining over there. It was muddy and wet, and we couldn't get around. The mosquitoes were eating us alive up on the plains. So It's just been an unusually wet year. My buddy Dustin DeCrew, Bighorn Outfitters over in Buffalo, Wyoming, he tells me the same thing. So the deer are really scattered. And the cool thing out there is their deer can't really go underground. They're plains deer, so they can usually find them, so they know where they are. And he said they're finding their deer right now, and he just started hunting on the first. They're finding their deer now where they usually are seeing them in May or June, just because that's where the spring green normally is. Well, the spring green is still there, so the deer are really widely scattered, and they're still out there. They're just harder to find. And but we've had very low temps here. The deer are moving well. Other than right here locally, I'm just not seeing a lot of mature buck movement during daylight, but I'm seeing a lot of does and small bucks moving throughout the day. I mean, midday. I mean, it's 47 now. It was about 30 degrees when I woke up this morning. We've had hard frost the last 3 days, so very, very cool, very nice, cool weather. Lots of apples still on the tree, so it's gonna look good going into the next rifle season, which you're also allowed to bow hunt, of course. And then I might mention, while we're on the Northwest, since we're getting this thing kicked off here, is these Northwest deer are a little odd. I'm only 3 or 4 hours from Canada. I'm so far north, you would think that our rut would follow that Midwestern pattern. But oddly enough, our rut here is very late in November. And I couldn't figure that out when I first moved here. I expected a Midwest rut, and it just wasn't happening. And then I finally figured out when the fawns are dropping in this part of the world, they have a very narrow window of opportunities for survival. We get snow and cold, freezing rains all the way through May, and then it gets very dry in July. Those deer have to drop in about a 2-week period in mid-June to have the highest chance of survival. And that's why I believe our rut is a little delayed for as far north as we are. Normally, kicks off about the 13th of November and goes through the end of the month. You'll see a few even rutting into December during the muzzleloader season. And so it's always I get very impatient, especially in about mid-October when I start finding scrapes and rubs. You know, I want to be out there hunting, and you get frustrated just not seeing those big bucks on camera. But you know, gotta wait out until the end of November. It's a very odd thing, you know, being this far north and this high up in the mountains.
Yeah. Well, what is your advice for anybody who is hunting in the Northwest this weekend? What is your advice to that deer hunter who's going to be getting out on Friday afternoon through Saturday and Sunday?
Well, you know, this weekend, Washington and Idaho, we're not open yet. We got a little ways to go. Montana, I might have some seasons. Wyoming's definitely open, their whitetail season. And you're really just going to have to cover some ground, climb up on some high points and glass, you know, there's little coulees and little headers that have a little bit of brush in them, you know, and maybe think outside of the box. Look in places that you normally haven't found deer, or where you see deer while you're out hunting sheds in the spring. Because they're just there's so much food out there, they're not really going to be restricted. But you know, like Dustin DeCrew of Bighorn Outfitters, he also mentioned that normally this time of year they're getting a lot of deer on the alfalfa and hay fields, and he said they're just not seeing the numbers out on the fields this year. There's so much feed out on the plains. So yeah, if you're depending on sitting over an alfalfa field or you know, another agricultural crop that you've got, it may not pan out for you. You might need to get out, cover some ground, and use your glasses and see what you can find away from the normal places, the creek beds and the agricultural fields.
Good deal. Tell us what's happening in the Southwest, and obviously you're going to be hunting down there quite a bit. That's why we have you cover both the Northwest and the Southwest region. You spend a lot of time each year in both. What does the Southwest deer hunter need to know this week?
Now, Texas, a lot better news down there. Talking to, I mean, they're bow hunting down there right now. Opened last week. And well, I talked to Alan Kane. He's the whitetail deer program leader for the Texas Parks and Wildlife. And he said, quote, "This is going to be an exceptional season." So, and I believe it, because talking to everyone down there, and I've been keeping in contact with my college friends all through the summer, everything has been perfect timing weather-wise down there this year. They got really heavy rains in the spring and into early summer when they needed it. It's been pretty droughty down there the last few years. They got a lot of rain this year, but they got it when they needed it, and then it dried out when they needed it, with some exceptions, which I'll get to. But I know, like, talking to Casey Smith, and he's in East Texas, and he said they're going to have bumper crops of acorns this year, or acorns for you guys in the east of Texas. But he said that they're going to have bumper crops of acorns, particularly red acorns are really coming on strong. He said they're not dropping yet, but they're going to be just right for, you know, those mid-October hunts. And he said he's seeing some scraping. I mean some rubbing, but not really the big signboard scrapes yet. No scraping yet. Moving down to like Central and South Texas, I talked to Mike Strofe, who has SOE Hunts, and he said the same thing. They had all that early moisture, but he said it's really gotten hot and dry down there now. They're actually started supplemental feeding their deer just to keep them in good shape. But he said the trophy quality is really good. They got the nutrition when they needed it. And he said they just need some rain now. He says South Texas in particular has really gotten it dried out, got pretty dry, very hot. West Texas, talking to my buddy Stephen Tisdale, who I hunt with. It's Crosby County, Borden County. That's where I go down and visit every year to hunt with my college buddies. And he's been messing with me all summer, sending me these trail cam photos. That they grew some exceptional bucks this year. So I'm kind of chomping at the bit for that. It's I usually go down there in December after the rut's over and all the guys have kind of finished up, so I'm not getting in the way. But those bucks start hitting the feeders again real hard to recover from the rut, so it's actually good timing. But there are some really good bucks down there this year. And now this is like out east of Lubbock. I mean, it's not that West Texas country's really coming on in the last 10 years. When I was going to college 25 years ago, there were no deer out there at all. Now it's as good as South Texas as far as I can tell. But I know that our old buddy Rusty Touchstone, he killed a buck with his bow a couple days ago that's touching 170. Really nice monster wide 5x5. And the trail cam photos that Steven's been sending me are just unbelievable. There's at least 6 bucks on there that no one would pass up, not even an Iowa guy. And all right, I got stuff popping up on me. And then I just talked to a buddy of mine, Dwayne Pert, another college buddy, and he's a farmer over in north central Texas. And he's been telling me about this early rut that they have, like right now. And I don't know, I've not heard of this. He lives there, he knows more about it than I do. He says they have an early rut for about a week this time of year. He says he has been seeing a lot of movement. Deer running across the road with their tongues hanging out, really covering some ground. So sounds like this weekend up in that part of the world, Dallas all the way over to Wichita Falls is going to be exceptional. But of course it is pretty much everywhere right now because of the dry conditions. The deer are really hitting the feeders hard. That's kind of the institution down there in Texas. Talking to people in Oklahoma, their conditions kind of paralleling what I was just talking about in West Texas. Exceptional moisture throughout the year. They've gotten a little dry, not quite as bad as South Texas. So their deer have grown big antlers this year. The deer are fat and healthy, really doing well. Colorado is the same deal. They've got a lot of moisture. Eastern Colorado has been fairly dry the last several years, and they've really got some good moisture this year. And I expect to see a bunch of booners coming out of the eastern plains of Colorado this year. It's just everything's set for that to happen. I got good nutrition this year, and the So I wish I had put in and drawn a tag. New Mexico too is out of the drought. They've had, since the early 2000s, they've just been nothing but drought. And I guess the only silver lining of that is they have had a lot of forest fires, which always sound bad and look ugly, but in the long run are actually good for the habitat, especially those cows, whitetail, coos, whitetail. I know a lot of areas that I hunt in New Mexico, we used to hunt a lot more. They were so brushy you could hardly walk through them without getting your shirt tore off. And some of those places burned. We were just looking at an aerial map right in the middle of where I've killed a couple Boone and Crockett coos deer with my bow, and a big giant chunk of it burned. And at first I was kind of like, oh man, but it's really going to do that country some good. That there was a lot of it that was just too brushy to even hunt, and it's that mountain mahogany and pinon and juniper and stuff that's really not that good for the soil. The now that it's burned, there's going to be a lot of food in there, and the next 10 years it'll be prime. So that's the silver lining of all the fires. But since the drought is broke, last year we had some decent moisture down there. This year they had exceptional moisture down there. So the guys I'm talking to are telling me that they're seeing some exceptional antler growth this year on the coos deer and the mule deer as well. And so there should be some really nice coos deer killed out of New Mexico this year. Now, Darren Choate, he's the editor of Bow Hunting World and Whitetail Journal, lives in Arizona, real serious coos deer hunter, and he's telling me the same thing. They had really good, sounds a little drier there. They had really super good moisture early when they needed it for antler growth, but it's dried up now, which probably a good thing for the water hole hunters. I know that a lot of good bucks have already been killed in Arizona during the bow season, including a couple booners I've heard of. So New Mexico, Arizona, coos deer hunting, this is going to be a really good year to kill an exceptional buck.
Good deal. There's a reason why the Native Americans also did prescribe burns. It is good for the environment, it's good for the habitat, it's good for the deer. And also for those of you out there, regardless of what region you're in, if you're dealing with drought, focus on water. Incorporate water into your tactical approach each week. That's something that we're doing here in Kentucky right now because we're, like I said, depending on what part of the state you're in, most counties in Kentucky right now here in the southeast, we went 25, 26 days without rain, which is obviously not as bad as some places throughout the country this year, but it's still taking its toll on an area here in Kentucky that typically doesn't see drought, especially this time of year. So focus on water. If you have small water holes, it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be a pond or a river or a lake. Think small. In my experience, mature bucks have been more apt to hit smaller, more secluded water sources during daylight hours. I think, a big part of that has to do with those smaller water holes are generally located closer to bedding areas. But I think it also has to do with their senses too. I don't think a mature deer is as apt to hit a moving body of water in daylight or spend much time around one because it limits his ability to hear quite as well, especially in those pressured areas. Not as big a factor in places that receive less pressure. But if you're hunting pressured ground, look for those small, stagnant, secluded water sources and incorporate those into your hunt plans here in the next couple of weeks.
Well, we did do in New Mexico and Arizona quite a bit, hunting the desert foothills. We'd find a rough little, rocky gully. I mean, really just solid rock. And we'd pack some water and some cement in there, and we'd cement up a little dam. And it'd create these little, I don't know, maybe 20-gallon little holding tanks. And, a lot of years we'd pack water in there on our back and dump it in there out of camping jugs, And those little spots can be real hot spots. It's kind of legal, baiting, it's because they have to have water out there. But if guy plans ahead and willing to work really hard, you can create those little spots in the coos deer country for sure.
Good deal. What other
and then
tips?
closer to civilization, they make plastic tanks now. You got a four-wheeler, you can drive up there and dump water out of a tank or even a big giant water cooler. It works really well.
Absolutely. What other tips and advice can you share with our Southwest deer hunters moving into the weekend?
Well, this week in Texas, it's just the deer are definitely hitting those feeders. You just get out there and put your time in. It's they're kind of soft after the summer. So this is a prime time. They'll be breaking up pretty quickly and getting a little more elusive, until the rut kicks in. But this next couple of weeks are going to be prime on the feeders. Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona. I think there's some seasons going on in Colorado. It's going to be, really good to hit the the milo fields, the wheat fields. My buddy in Texas did mention that the wheat's popping up really well. They've gotten some showers in the last couple of weeks, so the wheat's popping up really well. I imagine that's the case in Colorado as well. The winter wheat, the milo fields, they do have some cut corn out there with the thinner pivot sprinklers. So they're going to definitely be out on that food, especially with this cooler weather. I think that's it seems to be kind of across the country right now. We're really dropping in temperatures. Except maybe South Texas, it sounds pretty like it's going to stay hot down there for a while.
Good deal. Thank you for joining us this week. And as always, you guys, you can catch these reports in the written format on Realtree.com. They're in the rut report layout on the deer hunting nest. You can feel free to check out, get even more information there in the written reports that you may not get here. And as always, continue to comment, ask questions, share your own rut reports with us. We welcome those. This is your report, not ours. We are just here to serve as a resource, and you guys are part of that resource. We want you guys to tell us what's happening in your neck of the woods, and if you do that, we'll be able to share that with others, be able to help other hunters, and that'll be a direct cause and something that you can help your fellow hunter out with. So thanks for joining us tonight, Patrick. We look forward to touching base with you again next Wednesday night.
Yeah, I look forward to another fall of this. It kind of breaks up my week. It's fun.
Yes, sir. Thank you for
and
all
like
advice.
like Josh said, if you have specific areas you have questions on, hit us with those. We got friends and acquaintances all over the place, so we can look it up. We can call some people. We can figure it out.
Absolutely. And if, like I said earlier, if you jump on this after the live is over with, continue dropping your reports and your questions into the comment sections. We are excited about being able to get back to you. We will, if we don't answer or respond to your comment or question during the live feed, we will come back into the comment section after the fact and respond to you with additional comments. So even if you touch base or watch this after we're finished each Wednesday night, continue to converse with us. We'll converse back, and we'll make it a good old-fashioned deer camp, and we'll have fun with it here in the 2019-20 season. Thanks for coming on with us tonight, Patrick. We'll see you next Wednesday night.
All right.
All right, there you guys have it. That was from Mr. Mayteen, the man himself. He is a wealth of knowledge, and like I said, he lives with the deer up on the mountaintop. So thank you guys for joining our report. The first episode of the 2019-20 deer season. I think we're going to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 17 or 18 weeks of this. So it's a long road ahead, but it's going to be a fun one. And we thank you for joining us tonight and being a part of it once again. This is the third year of the Realtree Rut Report, and it continues to grow and get bigger thanks to you guys. Like I said, this is your report, not ours. This isn't about us, it's about you. So please continue to drop those comments, those questions, converse with us. This is a big old hunt camp. It's a party. So just come in here, have fun with us. We're going to have fun with you guys. We'll share your reports. We'll talk deer hunting. This is a laid-back scenario. That's what we want the Rut Report to be and to feel like. This is not uptight. This is not something that we all have to be, I don't even know how to say it about, but we are here to have fun with you guys and to just talk deer hunting. It's not just about the rut, as I said earlier. This is about just deer hunting. So we're going to be talking about deer behavior, whitetail behavior. We're going to be talking about what's happening in your neck of the woods. We are breaking this thing down not just by region, not just by state, but by counties in most cases. So when we get reports of what's happening as far as the rut goes each week, we're going to be talking about it, and we could even be talking about a town near you. So we get really detailed with this report, and that's why I think it's unlike any other out there as far as rutting behavior and deer behavior goes. We really dig down into the weeds and the details, and so are you. And that's why we rely on your reports as well. You guys, you're from your hometowns, you hunt the areas that you hunt, and we don't have resources in every single county in the nation. So we rely on you guys as well. So thank you to all those of you out there who continue to help supply the Rut Report with quality, good information that the rest of the viewers out there can rely on and trust. So thank you again. Tonight the Rut Report was brought to you by Thiessens. Go check them out. See the new product that just launched yesterday on October 1st. And, until next Wednesday night, make sure you come back. It starts at 7 Central Time, 8 Eastern Time. And for those of you out on the West Coast, that's obviously going to be about 5 o'clock for you guys. And those on Mountain Time, it's 6. So make sure you join us next Wednesday night. And we're going to keep going with it. We're going to take this thing all the way through to the end of deer season. And hopefully we'll make some memories and have some fun with you guys before it's over with. So thanks you all. God bless you. Good luck in the deer woods this weekend. We hope you fill all your tags. See you next week.